because
Yeah.
we need to do the. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood. My name is Sarah Lindsay and I am the minister of this congregation. We're so glad that you've found us online as we wait out the most recent COVID surge. The numbers do seem to be improving and we are hopeful that we will continue to monitor the situation week by week. So please watch your emails because that's how we'll inform you as soon as we are able to move back to that hybrid in-person and online Sunday service system. Unitarian Universalism is a religion of care and community, of promises and covenant. We don't ask folks to believe any one particular thing about the nature of God or humanity. We have no particular dogma or creed, but we do ask each other to think about who we want to be and how we want to be in this world together. We ask each other to embrace hope, the power of love, and the possibility of change. We're committed to increasing justice, love, and compassion. And we acknowledge what is hard and needs fixing in this broken world, even as we rejoice in what is beautiful and wonderful. If you're new to the Unitarian Society of Ridgewood and you'd like to know more about who we are and what we do, the best thing is to get connected to that weekly e-blast. A Google form link will be dropped into the chat, so just click on that, fill out the form, and we'll get you in the database. We'll also drop the email contact for our congregational administrator, Anne, into the chat. You can email her to check in and just let us know what brought you to USR this morning. We invite you to stay on also after the service ends for our breakout room coffee hour, so you can get to know some other folks in a low pressure small group setting. It is very good to be with you this morning.
Please join us in the words for lighting the chalice. They can be found on your screen. We light this chalice for the light of truth, the warmth of love, and the energy of action as we gather together in the circle of community.
Now I'll invite you to take a deep breath and to listen. Wherever you are in space, whatever is going on around you, you can take a moment, this moment, for you in this shared time, for your community in this shared time. This is a time for thought, reflection, silence, for meditation, prayer, song, for centering and reconnecting. This time we share is for remembering that we are not alone, that our lives are intertwined with so many, that we form part of the great web of existence. Breathe, listen, and know that each box on the screen is here with you in this moment, together making space and time, each of us in our lives, in our hearts, in our minds. Breathe and listen. A long time ago, in a place by the sea, that I spent blissful days as a child, then a youth, then an adult with children of my own. A long time ago, in a place I no longer go, I was given a blanket. It was woven by a crafter preserving ancient ways, and I first saw it hanging like a sheet on a line to dry, advertising its own beauty. Like a riverbed in which rich soil and slippery stone, cool water and persistent mosses commingle to create an astonishing array of blues, greens, browns, and grays, it seemed to move, seemed to speak, the soft babble of flowing water crashing into the silence of time. It called out to my heart. Simple and yet intricate, the colorful strands move in and around each other, drawn through by hands that mastered rhythms taught by generations of masters, each bringing a new depth to this object made to comfort and sustain, made with love and given with love, made for warmth, for use. At each end, the tassels run long, a reminder of the uncountable threads that come together to weave a single blanket strong. At each end, one can separate the colors, discern each one, imagine its story. The brown may be spun from the wool of sheep across the ocean, that gray perhaps from South America, or that blue from a nearby farm. Each has a story, though it remains unknown. Just as below the running river that springs from the earth or flows down from the clouds, each rock bears a tale of generations, of time before time, of being polished by dirt and water. So too each strand hand woven, and the hands that do the weaving tell a tale. Each set of hands, each heart, weaving and woven holds a history, a story, memories and dreams formed by life, buffeted by pain, polished by love, each one different, a unique strand whispering its truth, adding to the unspeakably beautiful sound of life. We are not alone, though sometimes we forget that truth. We are woven into one cloth, one gorgeous blanket designed for use, for comfort, to sustain and to love. And each and every day, the world advertises the potential of our shared beauty. It is there for the taking, for the making, for the weaving. In this moment, here together, we remember that we are the woven and also the weavers, each of us, rooted in generations and stretching toward the future, held by communities and beholden to them, seeking wholeness and sought by life's desire for itself, loving the world and beloved so much more than we realize, part of the web of the beautiful blanket of creation. Each Sunday, as an act of witness to each other's truths and lives, together, we share our joys and sorrows. We speak aloud the concerns and celebrations of our own lives and of the wider world. If this morning you have a joy or sorrow you would like this gathered community to witness, please take a moment now to type that into the chat. We also take a moment this morning to recognize the hostage situation in the synagogue in Texas that unfolded over the last day and a half. We're grateful for the safety of those hostages. We recognize too a fire early in the week in New York City that took many lives. We'll take a moment to allow folks to write in. We hold Anita and her niece, Marianne. Marianne was put on hospice, having brain, lung, and liver cancer. She's only 63, and she's fought hard for the last year and a half. We hold Marianne with love. Libby celebrates earlier this week having been able to attend Bob's sailing lesson on Zoom. Mary Alice is happy to celebrate Claude's 83rd birthday tomorrow. Happy birthday, Claude. Kristen also celebrated Jeff's birthday, and she also celebrates, happy birthday, Jeff. And she also celebrates all the wonderful friends in her life while still acknowledging and holding the truth that there are many sorrows and injustices in this world. Catherine remembers this morning that her mother shared the same birthday as Martin Luther King Jr. and is touched this morning by that remembering. Martin is holding his new friend Beneza from Argentina, who is surviving growing tumors that threaten organ failure and experiencing much physical pain. Jan is remembering her grandmother, who was born on this day in 1910. Paul is thinking of a friend who faces the second anniversary of the death of his wife. Holding all that has been shared aloud and all that remains in the quiet of our hearts, mindful of all the hurts and joys in this world we share, we come together into a time of prayer and meditation. Please find as comfortable a position as you can for your body. You can focus your attention on a spot on the wall or close your eyes if that feels safe. And then, as is possible for your body, I'll invite you to take a deep breath in through your nose and then exhale out through your mouth. Continue to breathe not in a rush, slowly, evenly, calmly. Let your body relax as it is able. You can unclench your jaw, relax your shoulders. Let your body come into its own stillness, even as you continue to breathe in and out. The world can be overwhelming in its sorrow. We mourn beloveds and lost opportunities. We cry over change we do not want and failures we think we will be judged for. Sometimes the pain feels so unbearable, our chest tightens, our muscles ache. We don't know where to begin to find ease. The world can be overwhelming in its demands. We must do this and we should do that. People need us to be or not be a particular way. The world needs us to act or not act according to unspoken rules. Sometimes the asks that are made of us are so loud. We want to run, hide, sleep, push it all away. We don't know where to begin to find space. The world can be overwhelming in its confusion, the frequent uncertainty a reminder of our lack of control. The present and ever-shifting landscape we can barely grasp, the future an imagined world we can't quite shape. Sometimes the shakiness makes the very ground feel unstable. We search for solid purchase and finding none feel fear. We don't know where to begin to find our center. Take a deep and slow breath. It is true that the world can be hard. Living these human, ephemeral lives of ours is no easy thing. We acknowledge that aloud to each other regularly. Life can be sorrowful, demanding, confusing. We affirm together that pain, lack of motivation, fear are normal, reasonable human responses to the challenges of life. And we breathe. We can also affirm other equal truths about this world we share and these lives we lead. Breathe. The world can be overwhelming in its joy. Every day, babies are born, folks learn new skills, loving connections are made, hearts are opened, celebrations mark the moments of a lifetime with laughter and companionship and delight. The world can be overwhelming in its generosity. All over the world and right here in this community, friends take care of one another, meeting needs, witnessing to each other's lives with graciousness, spaciousness, and open-hearted giving. The world can be overwhelming in its clarity. There are so many truths we know without hesitation. The value of each person, the importance of honesty, the way that caring and compassionate community is stronger than any evil, the power of love to bring us back to our center. The world can be overwhelming in its beauty. Waves crashing on the ocean shore, throwing salty spray, fireflies dancing in the dark of evening, the morning sunrise that glows on the horizon, every bud that flowers into a unique blossom. Breathe slowly, deeply. The world can be overwhelming, and so often the tears will come. Heartbreak and wholeness hand in hand. And at the end of each day, as we whisper I love yous to companions, human and animal, or as we recite daily gratitudes in our heads, or we make plans for what might be, we affirm that all in all, it is worth it. This morning, our prayer is that we may be strong enough to hold all the truths, to experience the fullness of our living, and to let the tears come as they may. May we hang on most tightly to hope and to love, remembering that we are not alone on this journey, but surrounded by care. So may it be.
Emergent strategies are ways of looking at the world, the natural world that we're a part of, and searching for collaborative efforts. Like, where does collaboration happen? where is right relationship happening between humans and the planet, between different parts of the planet, and what can we as a species learn about how to be in right relationship with each other and with the planet that we're living on. We're filming this in September, and we've just come through a week where there were 3 hurricanes, an earthquake, a potential tsunami. There was flooding, there's droughts, there's a fire raging the entire West Coast. At the same time, all the news that's coming out of the White House is devastating for our folks. We have people who are like, DACA is the thing that has kept my family together, the thing that has allowed me to be in the place that I'm from. Everything feels like it's so heavy and so intense. And how do we survive this moment? It doesn't feel like we can. And emergent strategy posits actually all of these changes. These are something that we need to figure out how we embrace and how we also shape them. So emergent strategy is really life moves towards life, longing moves towards longing. And if we're not also organized towards what we really want and what we long for, we will always settle into just reacting and trying to stop something bad from happening. The trick of this book is that everything you need to know is on pages 41 and 42 and on page 50. If you just read those 2 pages, or you can look at page 15. Page 15 also basically has the entire thesis, everything about the book is right there. So this Octavia Butler quote, "All successful life is adaptable, opportunistic, tenacious, interconnected, and fecund. Understand this, use it, shape God." So from that, I would say emergent strategy is learning how to be fractal. Small scale reflects the large scale. How to be adaptive in right relationship to change, but also with intention. Because if you just change all the time, you're just changing all the time. You're just a mess. You're just a leaf blown in the wind. But changing with an idea of like, oh, I'm a bird. I'm trying to get to Mexico for my migration. A storm came. How do I still get myself to Mexico? Then nonlinear and iterative, resilient, being in a practice of transformative justice, which I think we are just beginning to understand what transformative justice is or could be for us as a species. And then interdependent and decentralized, and always creating more possibilities. One of my favorite examples right now from the sort of the world of nature has been in this flooding that's been happening with the hurricanes, watching how ants have come together to survive. And they basically create a foundation of their own bodies, like a bottom layer of their own bodies that then other ants climb on top of until they create this floating mound that then is able to make sure that the majority of them survive until they come across something that is a higher ground. Right now, we are drowning in the overwhelm of this political moment and the overwhelm of hard decisions. How do we reach out and hold on to each other, knowing that holding on to each other makes us a more stable body that can actually float and not pushing each other down, not pushing each other under. One of my favorite examples in the human world is actually the work of Black Lives Matter and the movement for Black Lives, and feeling like this was emergent. It's not like someone sat down at a table and was like, I've got it all figured out. I know how we're going to catalyze Black people into their liberation fight and taking direct action right now. That's not what happened. There was just a heartbreak. It really, to me, it grows out of a heartbreak. Like if you look at the original post that Alicia put, it was like, my heart is broken and our lives matter. And that heartbreak was so catalyzed. And other people were like, yeah, how do we organize ourselves around what we long for and we believe in this moment when everything is telling us we don't matter, but we know we do? How do we move that? And that so many people answered that call, and that they have really tried to hold like, oh, what does decentralization look like? How do we keep adapting to changing conditions? Things that organically emerge from a real desire and a real longing, those are the ones that catalyze the most other people. They're super compelling. Like when you see someone feeling a real emotion, that's what you want to move towards and be like, I want to be a part of this. It's not just getting me to sign my name on a petition. It's not just getting me to be a number in the street. You actually want me to care about my own life and my children's life. Yeah, I'm down for that. One thing I say in here several times is what you pay attention to grows. So this administration wants us to put all of our attention on them, and I would rather starve them of all of that attention and put all of it on the amazing work that's happening here in Detroit or in Jackson, or in the Bay, or in all these other places, St. Louis, where people are like, we are figuring it out, we're surviving. And that's what I'm going to keep doing.
One of the promises we make to each other in our shared covenant at USR is to support this congregation with our presence, gifts, and service, and to care for each other and the long-term well-being of our community. This is a time in our service when we put that promise into action by reminding each other that we share a vision of justice and freedom for this world, and that it will take all of our different talents, gifts, and support to make that vision a reality. This morning, I want to remind you that this coming week, we have 2 more opportunities for some online learning led by experts in our own congregation. If you are a wine enthusiast or genealogist, or if you are new to either, we hope that you'll join in these Zoom rooms. Details are in the e-blast and also on Realm. Also, a little note about communication. We are renewing our commitment not to clutter your inbox, and so we will be reducing the number of e-blasts throughout the week. This means, though, that we really need you to read the ones that we send, and to get on Realm if you aren't already there, where a lot of news is being posted. You can talk to me or to Ann Peretti if you need help getting started with Realm. Lastly, you may have seen in Realm that we need a new greeter coordinator. It is an entirely online sort of job and can be done in a couple of hours each month. It is a matter of scheduling the Sunday morning greeters. Please talk to Jan Botcher if you'd like to know more about that role. We also uphold our covenant by our annual weekly giving. This month's Share the Plate collection will benefit the Northern New Jersey Sanctuary Coalition. Sanctuary is a not-for-profit coalition of societies, religious institutions, and individuals from Northern New Jersey addressing the needs of asylum seekers who have come to our country, escaping dire situations in locations throughout the world. The goal is to help the asylum seekers, asylees, establish themselves and achieve self-sufficiency. The coalition helps with housing, medical care, financial support, education, transportation, job searches, and more, as individuals and families with young children are confronted by a new culture with little money, limited avenues for housing, or even clothes. Please be generous in your giving today. The offering will now be given and gratefully received.
This morning, our second reading is a responsive reading. It's 584 in our hymnal, and it's from the words of Martin Luther King Jr. Dawn will help us by reading the plain text, and then if you all will read along with me, the italicized text in response.
We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny.
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
There are some things in our social system to which all of us ought to be maladjusted.
Hatred and bitterness can never cure the disease of fear. Only love can do that.
We must evolve for all human conflict a method which rejects revenge, aggression, and retaliation.
The foundation of such a method is love.
Before it is too late, we must narrow the gaping chasm between our proclamations of peace and our lowly deeds, which precipitate and perpetuate war.
One day, we must come to see that peace is not merely a distant goal that we seek, but a means by which we arrive at that goal.
We must pursue peaceful ends through peaceful means.
We shall hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. Earlier this week on Facebook, yes, I am still on Facebook, I saw a post that stuck with me. Someone I know reposted something from someone I don't know, and perhaps even that person didn't know the original poster. Somehow my circle and the ones that interlock with it managed to produce this particular post in my feed. The original is written by someone named Jan16, and it goes like this. He writes, "Several years ago, I invited a Buddhist monk to speak to my senior elective class. And quite interestingly, as he entered the room, he didn't say a word. That caught everyone's attention. He just walked up to the board and wrote this: 'Everyone wants to save the world, but no one wants to help mom do the dishes.' We all laughed. But then he went on to say this to my students: 'Statistically, it's highly unlikely that any of you will ever have the opportunity to run into a burning orphanage and rescue an infant. But in the smallest gesture of kindness, a warm smile, holding the door for the person behind you, shoveling the driveway of the elderly person next door, you have committed an act of immeasurable profundity, because to each of us, our life is our universe.'" Now, of course, the factuality of this story is up for debate. And as it happens, the quote about the dishes comes from the 1994 book, All the Trouble in the World, written by the political satirist and humorist P.J. O'Rourke. The thing is, though, as suspect as anecdotes like this are, posted on social media, as apocryphal as this story might be, still there can be truth. And this one struck a chord with me. I suspect that many of us have had moments when we have dreamed of grandeur, of changing the world, of being the one they show videos of in Sunday services generations from now because we so impacted the world. I imagine many of us have longed to have a moment of heroism as we imagine heroism to be, have longed to be more powerful than we perceive ourselves to be in reality. This little story is a reminder of all the ways we are already powerful. We lose sight of that when we look out at the great big world and all its many challenges and pains. We lose sight of it when we lose sight of the interdependent web and our place in it. We lose sight of the truth of our own already existing heroism when we lose sight of the network of mutuality, the garment of destiny spoken of by Martin Luther King Jr. and others. The interdependent web, the network of mutuality, these are not made by the well-known, the megastars, the people we can connect in 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. The networked web of creation is made in tiny circles of love and service and care. Families taking care, friend groups, schools, congregations, towns, overlapping and interconnecting and saving lives and changing universes. Each of us in our own lives, interwoven together with so many others, has the potential already to transform a life. Our own, that of a beloved, that of someone we don't even know, not necessarily through grand gestures and public stams, though those matter, but through everyday small choices about how we act and what we focus on. There is much to read in the work of Adrienne Marie Brown, much of use of worth. We watched a snippet of her earlier. Her work, Emergent Strategy, reminds us that the world is constantly changing, and our most successful living happens when we learn not to fear that change, but to move with it and shape it. The video we watched was from 2017, and though it was born in a particular moment in American political and cultural landscape, it speaks also to our now, as we face with uncertainty the future before us, as individuals in small communities like this one and as a nation. Those uncertainties range from the justice-oriented, will voting rights be beaten back and reproductive justice curtailed? Will the fight against racism and prejudice forever be an uphill battle? Will gun culture ever be reined in, or our competitive culture of violence? They range to the financial. Will the gap between those with vast wealth and the rest of us become wider and wider? Will poor nations around the globe continue to suffer disproportionately? Will our congregation continue to be sustained in traditional ways? Will individuals struggling in our out of control capitalist economy survive more waves of the pandemic? And they range to the social. Will we recover what has already been lost by generations of children affected by gun violence, elitism and exclusion, and now pandemic isolation? Will we recover the motivation we see flagging across nonprofit volunteer groups and other traditional institutions? Will we continue to suffer from the kind of siloing of identities that have kept us apart so long? The uncertainties and the challenges are very real. They are painful. Brown says that sometimes it feels like we can't go on. The overwhelm is real and we have to honor that. But there are other things that are real. And I know I've said this before, but it always bears repeating. Though we live in challenging times that feel unique to us, to live in challenging times is not unique. And though we face an in some ways unprecedented moment in terms of the global scale of this pandemic, in other ways, even that has precedence. In the plague, the Spanish flu, this is a unique moment, but it is not without historical comparison. And it is a moment that in many ways remains an improvement on millennia gone by. Knowing this, we still feel the heartache of the challenges. We still feel concern over what will be. Those reactions are perfectly reasonable. But also, knowing this, we can realize that there are ways forward, that we can, because we have before, instead of fearing this time of uncertainty, help to shape it as Brown recommends. To do that, we have to begin by confronting the feelings we have that make us feel like it is all too much. Often on this Sunday before the day on which we mark the life of Martin Luther King Jr., I think of one particular moment from his story. It's the one that stuck with me the most over all these years. It's late one night after yet another death threat call has been made to the then Reverend King's house. He's 27 with a wife and kids sleeping in nearby rooms, and he's about done. The uncertainty of the future, coupled with the certainty of hatred directed viciously and virulently at him and his family, has King sitting there with his cup of coffee, ready to just stop. In his book, Stride Toward Freedom, he writes, "I was ready to give up. With my cup of coffee sitting untouched before me, I tried to think of a way to move out of the picture without appearing a coward. In this state of exhaustion, when my courage had all but gone, I decided to take my problem to God. With my head in my hands, I bowed over the kitchen table and prayed aloud. The words I spoke to God that midnight are still vivid in my memory. I am here taking a stand for what I believe is right, but now I am afraid. The people are looking to me for leadership, and if I stand before them without strength and courage, they too will falter. I am at the end of my powers. I have nothing left. I've come to the point where I can't face it alone." At that moment, I experienced the presence of the divine as I had never experienced God before. It seemed as though I could hear the quiet assurance of an inner voice saying, "Stand up for justice, stand up for truth, and God will be at your side forever." Almost at once, my fears began to go, my uncertainty disappeared. I was ready to face anything. It's a very human moment that often gets lost amidst the heroism of King's life and eventual martyrdom. How many of us have sat up late, plagued by worry? Worry about our family, our communities, our world, our planet. Sat up, couldn't sleep because very real and present threats to joy and to the future, very real and present uncertainties made it impossible for us to still our minds and bodies long enough to sleep. In my fearful moments like that, in my late nights at the table with untouched coffee, I don't turn to God. It's not really my style. I suppose instead I turn to love made manifest in the world through relationship and community. That's my God. That's my source of hope, my way of remembering that I'm never alone. I think of my beloveds, I think of you all, I think of all the things we build, even in the face of all that is broken. Recently, someone asked me if I was worried about the state of religious life in America and our congregation specifically. I acknowledge that sometimes I worry about turnover in leadership positions. Sometimes I worry about attendance numbers on Sunday, or about what religious education looks like when we have to move online at the drop of a hat. There are times I worry, I said, yes. When we care about something, we're always going to worry about it. When we love something, uncertainty about its future naturally leads to some amount of fretting. For some of us, this is more true than others. The old phrase worrywart comes to mind as a way to describe some of us. But here's the thing, and I said this to my then interlocutor, I worry about this community we share, but I am not worried about it as a matter of course. There have been times I was, for months, just implacably worried, sure, but not right now. Right now, I feel optimism, hope, a renewed commitment to the fundamentals of the work we do here because, and this is what I told the board in a recent meeting, because what happens in small communities, what happens right here between us really matters. Over the last 2 weeks, perhaps because of New Year's and how it makes us take stock, perhaps because of this newly peaking wave, I've received communications from a number of you that have reminded me what congregational life is for, what it's all about. I've heard you say that the way we talk about authentic, whole self living here has you actively embracing that in your life outside. And that adult education we have offered has armed you with tools for welcoming and supporting others, tools you didn't have before. I've heard you say that the Sunday morning routine of being present here together online has been an anchor to the uncertainty of the pandemic. And that the ways you've been heard and seen and known here have you seeking that kind of empowerment and respect in other parts of your lives. I've heard you say that the connection and vulnerability of relationships built here has changed your sense of what is possible in mutual care. It sounds melodramatic, perhaps, but the business we are in this congregation is the changing and even saving of lives. And the reality is, though we don't always realize it, because we don't always share this truth with each other when it happens, this congregation is doing just that for so many. All throughout massive changes and challenges, we have been here so that all of us could show up in all the ways we have. And I will tell you a truth I know about congregational life. The more you show up, the more you lean into community, the more it becomes a cornerstone of your living. And the more you are able to open yourself to change. And then all of a sudden, all sorts of possibilities emerge. And things get better. So I am optimistic because you are here, still here, week after week, email after email, meeting after meeting. You're here opening your minds and hearts and allowing your life to deepen, allowing yourself to become more yourself. I'm optimistic because of this, because of you. King sat there and he prayed to his God and he found the assurance that he would never be alone. And I hear that same assurance in every message of care you offer each other, every time one of you reaches out to tell me about a fellow congregant in trouble, every Sunday when I see your names pop on the screen, or I see your eyes smile above your mask. Small communities of care matter. They are what change everything. Small circles, doing the dishes, positive impacts in our local, intersecting, overlapping communities. Brown understands that governments come and go, and yes, their work matters, and we need to impact it, affect it. We need to make sure we don't go down in a blazing tyrannical dictatorship or a death-dealing blaze of capitalist greed. But each and every day, activists, community members, family members are making changes, embracing the world and offering help that shifts universes and that improves lives. The little, small, unsung acts of heroism can save a life and change everything. And these stories are stories worth telling. These stories are stories to be proud of. Most of us will never be a King or a Brown. Our words and deeds will live on only in the small circles we are a part of. And that is not a thing about which to be ashamed or to feel wistful. That is the truth of most human living, and it is powerful beyond what our current culture teaches us. We exist in an intricate web, the beauty of which only shines because of each thread, nearly barely perceptible when seen all together. That weaving is made more nuanced and layered exactly because each strand brings greater depth to the oneness. The gorgeously woven blanket of creation, circle upon circle, layer upon layer, generation after generation, is not just beautiful, it's of use. It's a source of warmth, comfort, sustenance, love, and it is right here with each breath and each word and each act we add to it. May we continue to be woven in and among the communities that matter to us, taking lessons from the masters of the past, shedding our imaginings of grandeur, and slowly but surely weaving more warmth and greater love into the world, aware that the thread we leave behind adds more than we can ever know. So may it be. Please join us. We're going to sing a hymn that is known as the Black National Anthem in honor of Martin Luther King Jr.'s commemorative day tomorrow. So I invite you to join us as Kristen and Ron lead us. And the lyrics are in the chat, not on the screen, because they're very long, so it will be much harder to have them on the screen. So check the chat for the lyrics for singing along.
Please join in singing our hymn, number 149, Lift Every Voice and Sing. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let a rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Please join us in the words for extinguishing the chalice. They can be found on your screen. We extinguish the flame, but may the light of truth, the warmth of love, and the energy of action burn bright in our hearts until we are together again.